We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Now, I'll give you a heads up. We are recording this on Thursday night, but the people listening to it won't hear it till Monday. It's kind of a special occasion that I'm running it on Monday. And part of that reason is because I'm going to be out of town. I like to bank a couple of shows so I don't have to do it while I'm on the road if I can avoid it, unless I'm in Georgia or something. And so the reason I'm doing it on Monday too is because of the guest, Old Soul. She's on. Now, what's interesting about this too is I'm talking to her on Monday in the podcast, but by the time you hear this, I will have actually met Old Soul in person, because where I'm going out of town with my family is Las Vegas, and Old Soul lives in Las Vegas. Welcome, Old Soul. You know, it's always a pleasure to have you back, and I know people out there listening are even more excited than I am that you're here.
Thanks. I was like, normally I'll like an email or I'll participate in the chat, but I was sick. So yeah.
Well, yeah.
It was like 2 weeks. I was like not paying attention to hardly anything. And then I started like paying attention. I want to say like Tuesday I started paying attention. And it's like a lot changed, but a lot still the same. Like Trump is still trumping. I seen him outside the courthouse today doing this, or outside of the courtroom doing his same little speeches. I saw that Kevin McCarthy had quit. I don't even want to say retired. I want to say quit, because he didn't win his term. So he quit because he's a quitter. So I thought of something my grandmother used to always say, like, don't let the door knock people, the good Lord split you. I thought about that.
Yeah. No, let the door hit you with a good Lord split you. Yeah, I remember hearing that too when I was younger. Well, you know, as most people know too, I've been sick for about 3 weeks. I'm starting to get better now, and it's finally nice. It's easier to do the podcast when you don't have to cough or sneeze or whatever every 10 minutes. And it seems like everybody's getting this cold. It's not just me. Obviously, you got it. My family got it. It's fun. It ain't COVID, but it ain't any good either.
No, I had ended up with like a upper respiratory infection.
Yeah.
And then I had this like sharp pain like on my side, like in my back. But I know that I get gallstones when I'm like heavy on the greasy food. And so I figured that's what it was, but it wasn't getting any better. So I go to the doctor and they're like, yeah, your gallbladder is like inflamed. But
Wow.
because of my respiratory, they didn't want to like do these. They gave me steroids, antibiotics, pain medication. And I was like down, like I wasn't feeling good. My side was hurting. Every time I coughed, it felt like I was like coughing up a lung or something, like my chest was just burning. I haven't been that sick in a while, but I'm glad that I'm getting better, but it just sucked. It sucked so bad.
Well, now when I first started talking to you about coming on, I was just kind of planning on it, doing it today and all that stuff. And we were emailing back and forth, and we're just about to the point to try to get things set up. But then all of a sudden you got interrupted, something far more important to deal with. And it's timely because this was a big story last week. We know about the mass shooting at UNLV in Las Vegas. I thought it was weird that, you know, I was in Portland, Maine a week afterwards. You have this big shooting in, you know, the outback of Portland, Maine. And now I'm going to Vegas. And this past week, we have the mass shooting. That's weird enough for me. But when I was emailing with Old Soul here, she was starting to get a little frantic because you have a daughter and a nephew that goes to UNLV, and they happen to be there during the shooting, correct?
Yep. And my nephew, we heard about, because I was working and I was like working on a project. So I kind of like set my phone to the side and I was like focused. And I was feeling annoyed because my brother, he has a key, but it's emergencies only. And we had just got into it the other day. Like, it's not an emergency. You're supposed to knock on the door. But he was like in my office and I was kind of getting upset with him. And he just picked up the remote and turned it on the news. And like my heart, like it just like dropped. Even if I like think about it, I start shaking, you know what I mean? And we was like calling around and you know, they put out all kind of alerts, and the school will like send out alerts to parents and emergency contacts. And they were just saying, you know, there's no need to come here because you can't get through.
Right.
And we were really like getting ready to get in the car, but we heard from his son first. My daughter didn't have a phone on her, which is pretty typical, but it's like that waiting period. It will just think of every like bad thought that could pop in your head, and it does that. And every minute feels like eternity just waiting. And I was just like so happy to like hear from her. And then I was still shaking until I was actually able to like hug her and touch her and all that good stuff.
Right.
And then that relief that you feel, it goes away really quickly, because you think in your head like, you know, like some people have died, and so that relief that you're feeling, you know that somebody else is not going to be able to feel that relief.
Right.
So
Right.
it
Exactly.
takes away from being grateful and happy that you have your child with you, and then it just takes your mind to somewhere else. Like you can't feel relief because you're like, oh, somebody is not going to feel what I'm feeling right now. Somebody's not going to get this hug that I'm getting right now.
Now,
And
now,
so that will screw you up in your
now,
head a little bit.
I think most people see these shootings around the country in any place, USA, but I don't think anybody really believes it's going to happen to them. And I'm sure you felt the same way. What was your immediate reaction when you realized there's a mass shooting at UNLV? I know my daughter's there now. What's the immediate reaction? Is it just panic, or is it you go into old soul kick ass mode? What do you do?
It's panic. You don't feel anything except for like you just like I don't even think I was thinking about anything. I'm just like shaking, I'm worried, I'm pacing back and forth. You can't sit down, you can't stand up. You're just like freaking out. You know what I mean? And the only thing I could do is just like hold my phone. And then I'm
Right.
just like praying that she calls me. You know what I mean? Like I call her, I text her, and now all I can do is just wait. And then they tell your children, like they have all these mass shooting things at school, and there's like protocol for that. And one of the protocols is to silence your phone, because if you're hiding, you want your phone going off to alert the shooter that
Right.
there's other people around, or they're hiding in places that the shooter can't see. And so we as parents, we know that there's no need to blow up their phone, because the first thing they're told is to silence their phone. But on top of that, they're in class, so their phone is silent anyway. And so you don't want to do anything that could put them in harm's way. So you just have to sit there and wait. But when you're like watching the television and you're seeing like every cop car in the state is like at that school, you're seeing children running around, you're seeing ambulances there. This is the most helpless feeling in the world. You feel so helpless. Like you can't do anything, but you cannot do anything either. You just have to. I don't know how people deal with the bad news, but it
Right.
is, the waiting part is I can't even describe it. It's just frantic, panic, and just being scared all at once, you
No, no,
know? And so my brother and I, we just like sit there holding each other, like hoping that our children reach out to us.
now, when you first heard about it, was it still active or was it over by then?
At then, it was like conflicting reports. And that's the bad thing about our media that we have here, because they don't wait for fact come out. Everybody is wanting to be the first person to say something.
Right.
So you're watching it, but I could be watching CNN and they're saying something completely different than Fox. They're saying something completely.
I lost you there for a second.
Did you? Can you see me now? I can't see your screen.
I can see you fine. Yeah, you're kind of buffering now and again, but your voice is fine, and that's what's important. Um,
Oh, okay.
so for
You
those
don't
people,
you don't know who to you don't know who to listen to,
right,
because there's no consistency with the reporting. The local news is saying something different than like the media outlets, and then everybody is saying something different. You don't know who to listen to, and you don't know who to trust. So the only thing that you can do is wait. It's not like, I remember when I was in high school, like Columbine was the big case that we had,
right,
and we were just every channel you turned it to, they were all saying the same thing. But it's not like that anymore. Even if you go like going on social media, I'm pretty like my brother tried to do that and he was just like, oh no, I can't do this because it was just toxic and there was all kind of like, oh, they must have been Palestinian protesters that did
Yeah.
this. So that one is like conspiracy theory world and it's there's no information. The only thing you could do is just wait.
Now, did when you finally talked to your daughter, how was she
Mm.
reacting? Because your daughter, the way you explained your daughter, she seemed like a pretty in control girl and kind of knows what the fuck she's doing. How did she react, or how did she talk to you about what happened?
She wasn't okay yesterday,
She
which
wasn't.
is it's no, it's kind of like it was good for me because when I see her freak out, I have to calm down. And when she see me freak out, she has to calm down. We kind of like feed off of each other that way.
Right.
And she was just like crying in the phone. She was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where my friends are. I can't get a hold of this person or that person. It's the same feeling that I have, except for it's for her friends because they're like her family. And so she just was assuming the worst and then having the I kept telling her like, "Hey, calm down, just like take a breath," you know what I mean? And then they couldn't like leave because the traffic was so bad there. They had a shelter in place first, so they had to sit there and wait for that. And then after that, they still couldn't leave because there was just so much traffic, so much confusion, so many people everywhere. And you just want to put on a jetpack and just fly over there, scoop her up and fly back, but you can't. And I know that she's upset, she's crying, she's going through something traumatic and I can't comfort her with anything other than my words. And
Right.
I'm pretty sure those was comforting at that time either. So
Was she anywhere near the shooting, or was she in another building? I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still scary because you don't know what's going to happen. But uh, was she anywhere near the actual
she
attack?
was close to she was close to the business center that they have there
Right.
because she had like some labs or something that she was doing, but she wasn't in the like exact building where it was. But it was just kind of like she told me like she could have been on the other side of the campus and it still would have affected her the same way.
Oh, sure.
Because
Yeah.
you know, yeah, she like you know something is going on, but not only that, she was just saying when you look at everybody's faces, like everybody's faces was just like so sad and distraught. She was just like everybody's face looked like they just seen the most like horrific thing ever. And
Right.
it was kind of similar to 2017 when we had our the shooting from the guy that did it from the casino at the
Right.
concert.
Right.
You just see like this horror on people. And I was driving like Uber at that time, part-time. And so the people's faces are just like is you just see like and then you look in their eyes and their eyes are like really wide and panicky and it's just like really frantic. I don't know if you ever seen like a deer like caught in the head, like
Right.
it's different, kind of like a daze, they don't know what to do. It, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain when you just see trauma on somebody's faces.
Well, I think the scariest thing about these mass shootings, and the way I understand it, we're 310 days or 320 days into the year, and there's been over
Mhm.
600 mass shootings, which is fucking outrageous.
And yeah,
But
and ours yesterday was the 80th school shooting
wow,
out of those other ones. Yeah. So they've had the
this
out
year,
of
not
those
oh, not that's this year, not total.
right. So out of all of the shootings we've had in the country, ours yesterday was the 80th
of
school
the
shooting.
of the fucking year. That's
Mhm.
absurd.
Yeah.
I think the scariest thing about these mass shootings for anybody is seemingly they can happen virtually anywhere in the country at any kind of venue, churches,
Yeah.
hospitals, schools, theaters, whatever the fuck. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
every time you and I walk outside and everybody else walks outside, it's like we're playing roulette because you never know when somebody's going to fucking snap.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, I was telling my brother, like, when my daughter first started driving, I could not sleep if she was not
Yeah,
at home.
I know.
Like, I couldn't do it. I was like, I would just be up. And then it was kind of like, oh, okay, I trusted her to drive in the daytime, but at night, or if it was like bad weather or something, even now sometimes I still like have that feeling, like it's outside of her control, and then I kind of trusted her, like, oh, she's a responsible driver. She doesn't have too many people in the car. She doesn't have distractions. I trusted her to leave in her car, be responsible, and come home safe.
Yeah.
But you don't have the luxury of doing that when they're doing something as simple as going to school or going to the movies with their friends. It's like, where do you feel that peace of mind every time they leave the house?
Right.
It's not the same thing because this is out of her control. And when people do things like that, those bullets don't have names on them.
No.
These aren't people. That's not my daughter. That's not my nephew. Those are targets to that individual.
Right.
So it's kind of like that feeling when they're first driving alone by themselves in the car, except for now it's like every time they leave the house. I don't feel that for myself when I leave the house, but I feel that every time like she leaves the house, or if it takes her a little too long to text me back or to call me, I'm worrying like what's going on.
Right.
Is very unsettling to say the least.
What are the gun laws in Nevada? Are they pretty loose?
No, they're not really too loose. They're not as restrictive as I would like for them to be, but we still do our background checks here. You have like you have to do like your concealed permit if you want to own a gun, that type of thing. So we're not Florida, we're not Texas. We don't have
Yeah.
that going on because we're a purple state.
Right.
So I think and our governor is a Republican, but our legislators, those people are Democrats. So they
Right.
kind of like keep him in check a little bit.
Right.
So we still have our laws and that type of stuff here. But it's like we have states around us who don't have those laws. You could just drive from one state to the next if you really wanted to. So it's kind
Well,
of the assault weapons thing is like one of my biggest issues because it's not banned. I don't feel the people don't even hunt with the weapons that they use for these mass
no.
shootings because it would completely slaughter the game. So if it's going to slaughter a deer, what's it going to do to a human body, especially small children?
Right.
Um, I don't understand like why that's even
Well, it's like
okay. Like it don't make sense to me.
the Republicans always talk about Chicago. Illinois has stronger gun laws, but they have so many shootings there. Well, first of all, Chicago is one of the biggest cities in the country. And even though they have serious gun laws, Indiana's not very far from fucking Chicago, and Indiana's wide open. People can go to Indiana or Wisconsin or something like that and easily come back to Chicago. That's why gun laws have to be national and
Yeah.
not just statewide, because people can supersede all those laws by just going across the state line.
Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
We need universal common sense gun laws. And I really do think the assault rifles, there's no need for those on our streets at all. We're not in war, I don't understand that part of it, because even if someone got shot with a certain type of gun, you're like diminishing their chances of survival with
Right.
a weapon that's going to rip them to shreds.
Right.
Or if you have a weapon that can shoot 60 rounds in like so many seconds, is it's unfathomable. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, but I've just been all over the place since yesterday because it doesn't make sense. And
Well,
then I was seeing and hearing, it's so weird that people get desensitized to this because, and these are parents at the same school that my daughter goes through. I've heard, oh, thank God, only 3 people died.
right.
Stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it's like, only 3 people? Like, why is 3 people acceptable? What's the number that's going to make you feel like this is a bad thing? I've heard, because it was a professor who's no longer teaching at the college, and he
Right.
didn't have a grudge with the students. He had a grudge with the staff. So he
Right.
didn't shoot any students. He shot other professors or staff there. And it was like, oh, thank God he wasn't shooting at the students.
Right.
And I was just like, I don't understand how you could even say something like that.
Well, that's what you have to
That
understand
doesn't
is,
make it okay.
yeah, if one person gets shot, it's not crazy to say that it impacts the lives of at least 100 people. It
Right.
impacts, they lost a father, lost a grandfather, lost a
Hmm.
sister, brother, whatever. It's a pretty devastating thing when somebody dies generally, but in a
Yeah.
situation in these circumstances, it's got to be, like you say, unbelievable to deal with. It's absolutely crazy. And what's even weirder, you talked about being desensitized. And while that's going on, just prior to that, we had a shooting down in Texas where 6 people were killed. That's how
Hmm.
desensitized. The UNLV one was the newest story, so we're kind of focused on that and forgotten about the 6 people that died in Texas.
Right. It's on to the next. That's how I look at it. And then it's like the headlines are not what they should be because people aren't alarmed, they're not fearful. And the reason that they don't feel that is because of the body count is not high enough.
Right,
So 6 people dead doesn't make a headline. 3 people murdered doesn't make a headline, but 20 people do, or
right.
this many people do. Or though it's like it has to be a certain amount of people who are murdered before it's news. And I don't, it's just so desensitized to it. Like it's okay that we are just accustomed to living this way, knowing that we can walk outside of our door and not be able to walk back through it.
Well, I mean, the desensitization that you're talking about, we had over 600 shootings in the last 300 days or thereabouts. That
Mm-hmm.
means 2 a day. Why don't we have
Yep.
big stories on this every day? If it's happening every day or close to every day, there's a lot of mass shootings we never even heard about. It's fucking
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's not news.
Yeah, I think that it has to be like I was looking at the news today and it was just like there was nothing there. And I know the reason that it wasn't anything there is because A, it wasn't students, even
Right.
though these students are traumatized.
Absolutely.
And B, it was only 3 people, which is a horrible, like I heard the parent that I heard say that it took everything. Like I literally bit my tongue to stop myself from saying what I wanted to say to her. Um, but only 3 people died.
Yeah,
And then it
that's
was like, oh, thank God it was only 3 people who died. I was like, okay.
I mean
But it just goes to show people are really, they're used to it.
it's a far granted, it's a far cry from what happened in 2017 at Mandalay Bay.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that was 58 people.
Hmm.
But if one
It
person
was
dies,
58 people, and then it was something that you could sensationalize,
right.
like the Pulse nightclub shooting, because there was like actual footage of it. You can hear the gunshots, you could see the people running, you could see the panic on their face. So it's like, okay, we can play this over and over and over in a loop. But if it's not something that graphic, it doesn't get the headlines.
Well, there's an old quote. I can't even remember who put it out there. It was a famous person that made this quote, but it is, if it bleeds, it leads. And
Hmm.
that's really the attitude. And if it doesn't bleed, make it sound really bad. I mean, that's one of the things I've been pretty upset about with the media as of late. I keep watching these stories about, well, if Donald Trump wins, we're going to have fascism, we're going to do this. And they spend hours and hours talking about how bad it's going to be when Donald Trump is president. Well, if you're logical and you look at the situations, there is no path for Donald Trump to be president. He doesn't have the support, he doesn't have the votes. So if that's the case, why are we worrying about all the all the atrocities that might happen if Donald Trump was going to be president? He's not going to be president. It's just not going to happen. And why do we ignore shootings that just have a few people? Now, see, if it had been a store or something, it probably wouldn't have been mentioned as much. But the fact that it was at a college, that's part of the reason why it stood out and there was some news coverage of it. And it happened during the news cycle day part where you
Yeah.
could get video footage. I mean,
Hmm.
if it happened at 1 a.m, that would be something different. But it's Las Vegas. It's a college. It's going on. They can have cameras there in 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden it becomes this huge story. Uh,
Yeah.
and these people don't. I swear to God, these people in the media, the more tragic any story is, the more they fucking love it. They're sitting there, they're almost giddy because they've got a hot story to talk about. And it is pretty disgusting.
And what message does that send to the next deranged person? Like, oh, okay, I need to do better than 3. They're not talking about this guy because he didn't shoot any students. So I know what I need to do to get that headline.
Right. Yeah,
And
it's
then all of a sudden they're aiming for a bigger crowd. They're aiming for a different type of person or different group of people. When they make these plans and these manifestos, they're looking for the headlines. They're looking for the attention. And when you have the media making 3 people look like throwaway people or 6 people, oh, that's just a blip, it's teaching the next person that wants that type of notoriety what they need to do to get it. So that puts even more people's lives in danger because now they know I need a higher body count. I need to aim for this group of people. And I'll probably get more attention if I went to an elementary school versus a grocery store, or if I targeted a synagogue versus if I targeted, you know what I mean? They're telling these people what they need to do to get the attention, the notoriety that they want. They're telling them what it is that they need to do to make that happen.
well, and
I don't even think they care, to be honest with you.
no, I don't think they have any kind of sympathy or any kind of conscience at all. I think that
Mhm.
they want to go out in a blaze of glory. They're
Mhm.
pretty insignificant people in the first place. And this is
Yeah.
the way, even though they'll end up dead almost every time, they'll at least make their mark and have some sort of fame or infamy. And for whatever reason, in these fuckheads' minds, that's something they want. And that's really all they want. I mean, it's if somebody wants to go to the Mandalay Bay, break a window, and shoot a bunch of people in a concert, how do you even stop that? You don't stop that. The only thing we could have done there is not have automatic weapons, so he couldn't kill 58 people. You might have killed far fewer than that, which isn't good either. But Jesus, we give these people the opportunities to do whatever they want with guns. And when that isn't enough, we give them automatic weapons or semi automatic weapons so they can be more efficient in the process. It's fucking horrible.
Yeah, it made me think of Ron DeSantis when they were asking him about, for whatever reason, they're asking a non-serious person about, the gun crisis in this country. And he said, a deterrent for this would be to speed up the death penalty process. These people don't want to live anyway. They want
Right.
to go out in a blaze of glory. You know what I mean? So how is that a deterrent? You're telling someone who is wanting to go out in a blaze of glory, somebody who is suicidal, someone who wants to be suicide by a cop, and you're telling this person, if you do this, we're going to kill you. It makes absolutely no sense to somebody who wants to die anyway. None whatsoever.
Well, Ron's not a very bright man, and we'll talk about that debate in the second half of the show because I'm curious as to what you think about what's going on there. But there's going to come a time when these people in these states like Ron DeSantis or some of the other states that have these loose gun laws and think everybody should have a gun, and instead of taking guns away from criminals, let's teach teachers how to use guns. Fucking ridiculous. Um,
I mean, they walk around with their NRA pins on,
yeah,
you know, through the halls of Congress with
yeah.
NRA pins on. Okay, don't get me started. I'm sorry.
Well, I got, you know,
That gets me.
I got one of my greatest concerns about gun violence isn't from the Republicans. The way the Democrats and the media are showing what could happen if Donald Trump and the Republicans get in office in 2024, the whole idea of fascism and all that type of stuff. There's a lot of people very scared out there.
Yeah.
scared for the very future, their very future, the future of the country. And when you put people in that position and they find there's no way out, that's when they start flailing. That's when they start fighting. And it wouldn't surprise me for how drastic and draconian they're being told it's going to be. And if it looks like it's even close to being that, you're going to see some people kicking back. And it won't be the Republicans, it will be Democrats. And you will see Republicans being the targets in this situation. I hate to say it, but I know how people are. They get scared, they're going to react.
It's crazy that you said that because I was like literally having a conversation with my brother about this the other day. I was just telling him, like, if Donald Trump isn't held accountable, God forbid if he's even close to the White House again, I'm not afraid of Republicans at this point. I'm afraid of Democrats at this point because we feel that fear, like we know how detrimental it can be. And I don't see people just like sitting at home and just allowing that to happen.
No, I don't either. I don't
It's
either.
so
And
weird that you said that, but I was really thinking that.
I
And I
well, I
think that
well, I was thinking that too. And you're always at risk. I'm not trying to suggest anybody should do something because personally,
mm,
my personal preference is that Donald Trump goes to jail and lives a very long and healthy life in fucking jail.
mhm,
I don't want him to die. But honestly, if you've got a guy that's that polarizing and that's
mhm,
scary to some people, if he isn't held accountable, if it looks like he's close to the White House, I'd tighten up that guard around him because somebody's going to take a shot. I just have that feeling about it. I'm not wishing it. When Donald Trump does die of natural causes, I'm not going to be sad about it. I will cheer like everybody else. But, the way the media is whipping this up, the world is coming to an end if Donald Trump is going to be president. People with kids and grandkids that are worried about the future of their families. You got 3/4 of the country that don't like Donald Trump. What
yeah,
the fuck is going to happen? It's going to get very, very ugly. Um, and these people that wanted the Civil War, they have no idea what it could be when the amounts of people are angry or scared because people react crazy when they're scared. And I can tell you, I get emails and DMs all the time. People will tell me the same thing. I can't sleep. I'm scared. I'm
yeah,
worried. Thank you for trying to calm me down and give me the real information so I'm not scared all the time. But people
yeah.
are truly, truly scared. And that isn't a very good recipe if they feel like all is lost.
Yeah, something that I was like battling with like the whole like last month was trying to find the balance between being a realist but not feeling, not letting that, because you can be like you can't ignore what's going on. It's like this is happening, I'm seeing what's going on, I'm seeing the warning signs, so you have to be a realist so that you can live in reality and know what's going on, but at the same time not letting that like bog you down and start to feel defeated. You know what
Right.
I mean? So I was kind of like dealing with that because sometimes it's just like negative, 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 negative on top of negative. And then it doesn't help when you feel like one person is being held here and the other person is being held down here, but that person at the bottom is getting so much clout that it's pushing him up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
Donald Trump is always down here and Joe Biden is here, but he keep getting clout and that's pushing him up to Biden's level and he shouldn't be there. And if there's like, you just want to like grab the media and just kind of like shake them a little bit and be like, why are you doing that?
The thing about it
And I,
is though, when you're saying that he's raising up to Biden's level, that's not totally true. It's just what the
mm,
media is telling you. The
yeah,
media is telling you that, oh, he's going to win this, he's going to win that. None of that is true.
mm-hmm,
Like, for example, he's going to win the 5 swing states by 4%. What they don't tell you in that poll is that they also asked him what happens if he gets convicted. Well, then Joe Biden wins by 14%. Well, of course he's going to get convicted. They're only going to tell you the things that scare you, and they want to whip up this fear in this country. They did it in 2016. They did it in 2020. They did it in 2022. It just means ratings and money to them. And it's a horrible disservice to this country. You know,
Yeah.
when I talk to,
We're here on your podcast, and we know that.
yeah,
But the average person is low information. They're not even paying attention right now.
right,
So when they do watch media and they're putting Biden and Trump neck and neck, then you're putting people in a position to where they're not informed, and you're making them think that you have to choose between the lesser of two evils for thing,
right,
instead of just reporting accuracy and facts, letting them base their decision off of that. But when you're putting them both together, making false equivalency. So it's like if Trump does something bad, now you have to say something bad about Biden so that you can appear to be objective and non-biased. But it's like if Trump does something bad and Biden doesn't, you don't have to take his tennis shoes and make it a big story
right,
because one person is doing something bad and the other person isn't. It's like they constantly put them together. So people who are not paying attention, they really do feel like, oh, they're just both the same. Democrats and Republicans are the same. Oh yeah, Trump stole some money, but so did Biden and Hunter Biden.
right.
They don't even know the difference. And when I watch the news and I see that, like, it can really weigh down on me because I'm like, people watching this, they don't know better. So why are you doing that? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it was getting to me last month a lot, but
It's getting to a lot of people. A lot of people get stressed out about it. I hear from them all day, every day. Um, I'm not someone who gets stressed out. I look at the facts and I know what I know, and I'm just trusting that that's how it will go. And since I started
yeah,
doing the podcast, I would tell people, well, they're saying this, but I think this will happen. And so far, I've been right, not because I'm any genius. It's because I'm not letting the emotion come into it. I'm just looking at the facts. You know, if you've got Donald Trump losing by 7 million votes and substantially in the Electoral College in 2020, and now we've got another one in 2024, if he's even able to run, um, what has he done to increase his lot, his support,
yeah,
his votes? He's done nothing. Everything he's done has cost him support and votes. So he doesn't have the ability to win. There is nothing that says he's going to win. Republicans themselves, moderates, they've all walked away from him. 50% of this country are women. He's proud that he overturned Roe v. Wade. All they have to do is play that over and over again between now and November of 2024, and he fucking loses. Any Republican
yeah,
loses if they agree to that.
yeah. I think what I'm trying to train my mind to think is, when I'm sitting here I'm saying these, people are low information, they're not paying attention.
Right.
You stop telling them the wrong things. I'm starting to tell myself, okay, people are not paying attention, but they know next year is going to be like a primary and an election, and then they're going to start paying attention.
Right.
So it's
Right.
kind of like, I don't know how long Republicans think they can hide Trump. And when I say hide him, because I know he's always posting and he's the conversation topic and all that.
Right.
But seriously, how long can they hide him? How long before he has to like engage with people right now who are not paying attention? So it's like, how long can he go without having to do a real interview? How long can he go without having to show up to a debate? How long can he go without having to answer real questions? You know what I mean? So like right now he's getting away with it, but how long is he going to be able to do that? So it's kind of like they're hiding him by keeping certain people ignorant, but other part of the country right now is not paying attention.
Right.
So when it comes to that primary season and people actually are engaging and they are paying attention, I think that's when I would feel more at ease, because then that's when I'm like, okay, people are paying attention now. And Donald Trump can't hide who he is. The Republican Party can't hide who he is. And so a lot of the stuff that he's able to get away with right now, he's not going to be able to get away with that next year. And you can't hide him from his trials either. You can't
No.
hide him from the information that's going to start coming out from them trials either. So when I say stuff like that to myself, it kind of hypes me up a little bit, but it could be irritating just to see
Well, let me
how they
give you something
report
else to
on
be.
stuff.
Let me give you something else to be positive about. I think the first big hit, and maybe the most devastating hit, is going to come within a month, and that is this lawsuit in New York. We know he's already
Mm.
we know he's already lost it. That's already a done deal. He's lost.
Yeah.
So now it's a matter of finding out how much money he's going to have to pay and what's going to be taken away from him. We know
And
it's
if
going
you
to be
got
a
the
lot.
same feeling that I have, that Judge Ingram, for some reason he may not go easy on Trump. I don't know why, but he may not do that.
No, I mean, if you got one guy who's going to decide on your fate and all you do is rip him, his law clerk and his wife, that doesn't make any goddamn
Yeah.
sense. But what I'm saying is Donald Trump at the core is all about his perception. He's all about his money and his power. So when he
Hmm.
gets hit and he gets devastated by this lawsuit, they ask him that they make him pay $500 million. They take away his business. They take away his properties. He's broke as a fucking joke. That's not jail, but that may be worse than jail to Donald Trump. Now he's
He's
just a
losing it
shell.
already.
Yeah. Yeah. He's losing it in that court. And that's going to happen here pretty quick. It won't put him in
Hmm.
jail yet, but it will destroy him financially and emotionally and intellectually. And then all of a sudden, everything's going to get easier because he's nothing. He's a blob of nothing at that point because he only identifies as a rich guy who has a lot of power and a lot of property. After this happens, he won't have that. And people will say to me, well, yeah, but he'll appeal it and delay it. Yeah, he could do that. But
Hmm.
according to the law, he can't appeal it until he pays the money he fucking owes. He's got to pay the
Yeah, but
money first and then appeal it.
yeah, and I think people think that, when Donald Trump appeals things, that everything else just stops.
Yeah.
He appealed it. Everything else is stopped. The wheels are already spinning in motion. Those wheels are going to continue to turn. They only stop turning, hopefully, um, if the appeals, like if they come down, like it'll keep going regardless of your appeal process. It's kind of like saying somebody's in prison, but they're appealing it. So they're at home because they're waiting on their appeal. Now you still have to do your time until that appeal goes through. So those wheels are still going to turn. He's still going to have things stripped away from him,
Right.
regardless of his appeal status. And I think that a lot of his supporters are hanging their hat on the delay tactic. Like, okay, be able to take anything from him while he's in the appeal process. It's like, no, they can still do what they need to do while they're waiting on that appeal,
Well, and that's the other thing.
if that works for him.
People think though that if these go past the election, then he'll just win the presidency and he'll give himself a pardon. I just told you he ain't gonna win. There is no way anybody can tell me he's going to win. There's nothing that shows us he's going to win. If it goes past the election, okay, then he'll be weaker as hell and he will go to jail. It doesn't matter. Everybody's trying to make it look. People love fucking drama, you know. Oh,
They
the
do.
world's coming to an end. And I've always talked to my wife about this. She tends to look at things as the worst. Look at the
Mhm.
worst of something because she's nervous or has anxiety or something, and she'll expect gloom and doom, and then finally we'll get to it, and it's nothing. It's no big deal, and she'll be relieved, right? And
Yeah.
she'll be excited. Well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I said, but think of
Yeah.
this: you spent the last 2 months stressed out and worrying about something that never fucking happened. Why do you put yourself
Yeah.
through that? Don't worry about shit till you have to worry about it. Don't worry about shit you can't control. And take a look at the facts and make your own decision. Don't listen to anybody or anything anybody tells you. Make your own decision based on what you fucking see.
Yeah, my grandmother used to say, like, I'm smiling because she used to always be like, well, I want my 2 days back. I want my 3 days back.
Right.
So, like, if I would be going through something and I'm like moping around or whatever, as soon as I'm feeling better, she'd be like, are you feeling better now? And I'll be like, yeah. She'd be like, I want my 3 days back because I had to sit here and watch you mope around this house for 3 days. And, I want my time back. And it would just like let me know, like, okay, I was moping around wasting time for like 3 days. Even though
Exactly.
I know I had to go through that process, for her, it's like, You can't change it. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You kind of
yeah.
reminded me of her when, when you said that because you're like, you can't change it. What you worried about it for?
Well, you said that reminded you of your grandmother.
Hmm.
Well, that you
She
know,
used to always say that.
and I'm a grandfather now, so that's just wisdom that's downloaded once you become a grandparent. That's just how it works. I didn't know this shit
Yeah.
before. Got to be a grandparent. Now I'm a fucking genius.
I think
Well,
it might switch over. I don't know what kind of grandparent I'm gonna be, but we'll see. We'll
yeah,
see.
yeah, you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. I tell you what, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We have the good fortune of having Old Soul with us on the show today. Love talking to Old Soul. She has a lot to say. She's very articulate, and I only have to work about half as much as I normally do. So this is fucking great. And I love Old Soul, as most of you do. Um, you didn't happen to
Thanks for the
watch. Thanks
thanks for
for
the first half because I hadn't like really like talked about it. And I was like stuttering, fumbling all over the because I hadn't really like talked about it, but I feel a little bit better now that I stumbled through talking about that emotion. So thank you for that.
no, well, no problem. And I asked you before we went on, do you even really want to talk about it? Because I don't want to seem like I'm exploiting a tragedy for the sake of doing a podcast. But you offered a perspective that we don't see too often, thankfully, where somebody who actually
Yeah,
experienced being a parent and having a kid in the middle of a active shooter and the thought process and all that stuff. And I think it's important to talk about that too, because like you say, folks get desensitized. But for you on that
yeah,
day, it was real and it was terrifying.
yep. I, I think I said like before we recorded, you know how you lose like that sight of your child in a grocery store at a park. They're out of sight for like a minute,
Right.
and you feel that relief. And you're like, okay, whew, and you move on with your day. You feel that relief for that moment, but
Right.
then it builds back up again because they're going to be out of your sight again tomorrow. So it's a little bit different. I think if people could just remember that moment when you don't know where your child is or what's going on with them and just magnify that, that's pretty much how it feels.
Well, definitely magnified. You don't know where your child is, and there's an active shooter. That adds a
Yeah.
whole dimension that I cannot imagine what you would go through when something like that would be happening.
Yeah. And when people stop looking at people as individuals,
Right.
they start looking at them as a target or a way to get their point across or their view across or whatever warp. Anytime someone makes someone not seem like a human, that's
Uh,
not a good thing.
making them nothing more than a statistic. And yeah, you're
Hmm.
absolutely right about that. Did you happen to, I'm sure you didn't. You didn't happen to watch the debate, did you? The
Nope,
GOP
I waited
debate?
for the clips.
Did you
I just
watch?
waited for the clips.
Yeah, that's usually the easier way to go. Um,
Yeah.
Donald Trump doesn't show up to the debates. There's going to be a couple of more debates, I guess, and he's not showing up to those either. Do you ever wonder when you look at those clips for the debates and you've got all these people that are all 40 points behind Donald Trump? Do you ever look at that and
Mhm.
go, what's the fucking point? Why even do this debate? It makes no sense.
No, I look at it and I say, typical GOP,
Yeah,
selfish. It's very selfish because when they have someone like Donald Trump who is actively dragging the party down through the mud,
right.
you need to come together to not only do what's best for the country, but to keep your party together. But everybody is like out for themselves. You don't want to come together and work together and pool resources together. So instead of having a major donor over here, a major donor over here, you can have all those major donors putting their money into one pot. And you can get together and get some courage and not be selfish and put an end to Donald Trump. But instead of doing that, they want to stand on stage and do this little clown show tit for tat crap that they do. So I don't think about it like, what's the point? Because
You
They
know,
haven't had a point. They haven't had a point in I don't know how long. It's just them boosting up their resumes, getting themselves out there. Chris Christie was talking about a book he has coming up and all that other kind of stuff. Vivek, I don't know. I think he's vying for a position in the White House, and it's like they're all doing it for themselves instead of trying to do something for the right reason, and they are incapable of doing that. So I don't say what's the point, because they don't
well,
have a point. I just look at it as a selfish gesture that they're doing.
well, Vivek Ramaswamy is definitely auditioning for some job in the Trump administration. That will never happen, but he is auditioning because he's spewing all these crazy conspiracy theories. Like, for example, he said January 6th was an inside job. Well, yeah, Donald Trump was fucking president. He had the administration. That's the point. It was an inside job. It wasn't the
Yeah,
fucking Democrats.
and if you really do think it's an inside job, then you need to start putting pressure on Speaker Johnson so he can stop blurring out people's faces. Why
Yeah,
don't you direct your anger that way? If it was an inside job, let's see these faces. Let's see who these people are that they're covering up for. Come on, Vivek. Put your money where your mouth is.
I don't have a lot of confidence in success with the Republican Party. People are fearful of them. I put it to them like this. I say, January 6th, we had Trump in the Oval Office. We had Barr in the DOJ. We had
Mhm.
somebody that supported Donald Trump handling the National Guard. We had a Republican led Supreme Court. We had a Senate that was run by Republicans. They set all this stuff up. They dragged people up to the January 6th a day at the Capitol, and they still
Mhm.
fucking failed. They still fucking failed. They had everything going for them, and they still failed. So
Yeah.
none of that's going to come to. You're never going to have that perfect storm again. So why are we so worried about what they're going to do? They fail at every turn, from the hearings to Hunter Biden's laptop to whatever they fucking fail every time. So why are we worried about them?
I just want to say something about that laptop real quick,
Yeah,
because everything they do is projection, right? So
right,
every accusation is a confession. If they feel this strongly about Hunter Biden's laptop, I'm like, what is on these people's laptop? Like, if they think like, but outside of that, I think they keep hyping Trump up as this big, strong man. He bows down to no one. He just throws his weight around. But January 6th ended because he caved. He
right,
caved to the pressure. You saw the January 6th footage where they were reading Trump's tweets out. And when
right,
Trump told them to go home, they went home. So if Trump was really like about that life, he would have been like, no, I'm not sending my people home. They
right,
up there, they doing what I'm telling them to do. So you can stop certifying this election and then I will tell them to go home. He
right.
didn't do that. He caved to the pressure. He told them, you're beautiful people, go home and all
We
that other
love
kind of
you.
stuff. Yeah, if he was such a strong man and he was really about that, he wouldn't have told them to go home, but he did. January 6th ended because, well, the National Guard was already coming, so it was going to end anyway. But he could have went out Al Capone style and just told them, no, hold it down, stay up there. But he didn't do that. He caved. He a coward, just like the rest of them. Kevin McCarthy just got ran off by Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right, 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 exactly. And the likes of Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump. I have a name for those folks. It's a name that I stole from Chrissy Teigen, and
I
Donald
know
Trump
what
is
you're going to say.
Donald Trump is a pussy ass bitch. Now,
Yeah, that's just.
I love that phrase. I love that phrase, and every time I do it on TikTok, I got somebody coming on and go, "I love you, Boomer. I like the way you talk." And I say, "I stole it from Chrissy Teigen." Um,
You
now, I often say that I don't think Donald Trump will be the nominee, and everybody thinks I'm crazy. He's got all the votes. He's way ahead. Of course, he's going to be the nominee. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think he'll be the nominee?
I don't know if he's going to be the nominee or not. And I don't even know how I feel about him being the nominee. I really don't. Um, because it's so close to the trial date. And I know there's like this whole, are we gonna put the film in the federal trial and stuff? I think we can meet a happy medium. I don't, your wife is into true crime. So they had the Lori Vallow case
Right,
where
right.
the compromise was we'll film the opening statements and the closing arguments. But for the actual trial itself, there's no footage, but there's live audio.
Yeah.
So I think they may come to some kind of happy medium that way. At least that's what I'm hoping. And I think when people start hearing what's going on, that's going to make a huge difference and it could sway it one way or the other. But I don't know. Like, I can't put any kind of stock in
First of all,
Republican voters at this
fir-
point.
first of all, I think it would be advantageous if Donald Trump is the candidate, because I think that will be
Mhm.
the easiest time for Biden. He'll have no trouble beating Joe Biden. He'll have no trouble beating any of these people, to be perfectly honest. But Donald Trump is so toxic, he can't win. But when I say he's not going to be the nominee, people say, "Oh, you're crazy." Okay, I'm crazy. But think about this. We've got the remaining Koch brother pouring all his money into Nikki Haley. We've got other GOP
Mhm.
donors pouring money into Nikki Haley. I mean, millions of dollars into Nikki Haley. The only way
Mhm.
Nikki Haley has a chance to even be the nominee is if Donald Trump drops out, because he's way ahead of her. So if these wealthy guys think that's a possibility, they either know something or feel confident about something. It's not just me that thinks Donald Trump won't make it to the election.
I think the human mind is very tricky. So I don't underestimate the mind of his cult followers.
Right,
I don't underestimate the propaganda, and I don't underestimate the ignorance of a lot of people that's not paying attention and they're just voting Republican right now.
right,
I do think that the money going into Nikki Haley's campaign right now is not being used appropriately. Because from what I saw on the debate stage last night, she was still unwilling to take it to the floor with Donald Trump.
right,
And
right,
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking that, you know, she's gonna make the same mistake that Ron DeSantis did. You're gonna try to play both sides of the fence.
right. It
And
won't
it's like,
work.
you know, you have to make a decision. You're either gonna run for president or you're not. And if you're gonna like try to take down Trump, you need to take it to him. And I
Right,
think Ron DeSantis waited too long to start with his attack ads and everything against Trump. And I see Nikki Haley doing the same thing. So it's like all the money in the world is not going to help you if you're not going to use that money to run ads and, you know, put his horrible record out there. Even I would even do some comparisons as far as the border goes. Oh, Joe Biden has adopted pretty much the same thing as Trump had, except for the kids in cages part. So if Biden is doing the same thing that Trump did, then that's not really going to work. But I'm Nikki Haley and I got a new idea. She's
right.
not even doing that. I'm like, what is she doing? It's
Yeah.
like they're wasting their money. Just attack him.
And
I don't get it.
just remember, Nikki Haley was on in Donald Trump's administration as the ambassador or to the UN when they
She
asked.
don't have no dirt on him.
Yeah, well, they when they asked on stage in one of the first debates whether they would vote for Donald Trump even if he was convicted, she rose her hand. She's not. She's just as fucking crazy as all the other ones. But let me ask you this about Ron DeSantis. You're talking about the strategies he does, okay, and how he's fucked that up.
Mhm.
That's true, but there's more to it than that, old soul. This guy is a weirdo. He's awkward as shit. Let me put it to you this way: you're 43, right?
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis is 44. Okay. Say Ron DeSantis is married. You meet up in a bar. He says, "What up, girl?" And you guys start talking. You don't date that guy just on the way he fucking smiles and the way he laughs and the way he looks, because he's an awkward motherfucker. You're going to think, wow, there's a serial killer.
If Ron DeSantis ran up on me in a club, I'm walking to my car with my mace and my Rambo knife.
And I'm talking about if you didn't know he was Ron DeSantis, if he was just a guy.
No, he's a creep. I'm walking to my car ready to defend myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Either that or I'm asking the bouncer, hey, can you walk me to my car? That dude over there is weird. I don't, I can't see Ron DeSantis in any club that I go to, first of all.
No,
But yeah,
no.
he is a weirdo and he's an oddball. And he should have owned that in the beginning. And just regular average Americans could be like, oh, yeah, I know what it's like to be a little awkward, a little weird, or, that type of stuff. But he didn't do that. He tried to make himself something that he wasn't. He made that mistake. But even though Ron DeSantis is weird, you got to think about it. Nikki Haley is a woman in the Republican Party. They're
Right.
racist and sexist. So
Yeah.
she
She's
doesn't
an
have that much more of an appeal than Ron DeSantis.
no, I mean she's a woman. She's from East Indian ancestry.
Yeah.
She's not a hot property with a Republican misogynistic racist fucking group. I don't know how she ends
All
up
these
being the
all
nominee.
these people that was in Trump's administration, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, even John Bolton, like all these people, none of these people have on Donald Trump. And he was behind the scenes doing some stuff.
Yeah.
And I was sitting here thinking to myself, like, if Nikki Haley had the personality of George Santos, that would be perfect. Because the moment he crossed her, she would be throwing all his dirt out there in his face and doing, you know what I mean? And
Right.
that it's you shouldn't have to go that low when you're running for an office as high as the presidency. However, that's what the base wants. That's that red meat that they need. So you do what you have to do to get through the primary, and then you can kind of clean it up later when you're going into the general. But they're not doing anything to attack Trump. That's the only thing that has me on the fence about it. With Nikki Haley and anybody else, they don't go after Trump.
Right. Well, there's that. Now that you brought that up, there's another scenario I imagined. I think I talked about it on TikTok, maybe here, but whatever. Um, you saw that Liz Cheney came out with that new book, right?
Yeah.
And she's got some pretty damning shit in there. And I just have to say,
Yeah.
one of my listeners, um, said you need to read the Liz Cheney book. I said, well, I intend to, and she was pretty insistent about it. So she sent me a link to get the audiobook for free, which I jumped on because I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I want to thank her
Mm-hmm.
for doing that. But here's an interesting scenario to think about. Liz Cheney kind of inkled that she might run as a third party candidate. And
Yeah.
I heard some Democrat going, "Oh no Democrat's going to vote for Liz Cheney. She's against abortion. She's ultra conservative." But there's something Liz
Mm-hmm.
Cheney said before she left the House of Representatives. She said, "I will do anything and everything to make sure Donald Trump is not president." So imagine this, if you will. Donald Trump is the nominee. Say that happens. Liz Cheney says,
Mm-hmm.
"I'm going to run a third party." She knows she's
Mm-hmm.
not going to win, but all the people that want to vote Republican but can't bring themselves to vote for Donald Trump, they're going to have an option in Liz Cheney. That'll split the party even more. And Liz Cheney will have done what she said, made sure Donald Trump isn't the president. Now, it may sound crazy to you, but those Cheneys are some insidious motherfuckers.
Yeah, I went to get the book off Amazon, but it was sold out. So I ended up ordering it from Barnes and Noble. So it should be here Saturday, I want to say. I could track the shipping. But anyway, and it was kind of like threw me back a little bit. Like her book sold out on Amazon. Like that kind of let me know right there where people's minds are. Like people are actually like reading this book. And Republicans, oh, I guess you could say old school Republicans, um, that would be a perfect spoiler for Donald Trump because I don't see any other spoiler that there could be because she didn't give up, but she was pretty much kicked out of the party.
Right.
However, it wasn't in like I don't know how to say it. Like she still has her status, even though she's not in the House of Representatives anymore. You know
Well,
what if that makes any type of sense?
she's well respected
Yeah.
with Democrats because of what she did,
Mm-hmm.
and she's well respected with conservative Republicans who don't align with Donald Trump. I
Right.
think I've said before, I think Liz Cheney, when she left, I think her intention was knowing this whole thing with MAGA can't last. And when it dies completely, they're going to need to rebuild the Republican Party. And who
Mm-hmm.
better to lead the Republican Party in the new reimagination of it than to go back to being conservative? And the one you know the best, the one that isn't tainted by Donald Trump, is Liz Cheney. So I wouldn't be surprised if Liz Cheney is, after the 2024 election, is starting to take control of what will be the new Republican Party.
Yeah, I like how you said that because I'm sitting here, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, and when he went out, it was kind of like he didn't have that same status that she had. And the only way that I can think about it, I'm trying not to talk hood, but it's
Go
like
ahead. I like
Liz,
it when you talk good.
it's like Liz Cheney went out like a G. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Mitt Romney, he still stayed there and played the games and did whatever. You know what I mean? But she didn't do that. She went out. Like she was like, "No, this ain't cool. This ain't right," and she stood on her principle, and that's how she went out. Versus somebody like Mitt Romney, he didn't do that, so he doesn't have that same level of respect that she has. So in that instance, she would be, in my idea, a better spoiler than somebody like Mitt Romney would ever be, because
Yeah.
he lost that type of respect that she has, and she could still like go around and say the things that she says about Donald Trump and MAGA and the Republican Party, and you don't see Trump coming after her like that. You know what I
No.
mean? Like he doesn't really attack her the way that he attacks other people. I actually think he attacked Kevin McCarthy more than he did Liz Cheney, it just kind of shows like that level of respect that she has. And it could be because when she left standing on her principle. And
Yeah.
that's the difference there. So even if they don't like, if it falls flat, because she voted with him like 93% of the time anyway. So
Right.
she still has those horrible policies that Donald Trump has, but she's willing to put the country above MAGA.
Well, I think
So that gives her the respect.
it may have something to do with the fact that her father is the devil and he's still
Yeah.
alive.
And
You want to fuck with
nobody
Liz
knows the
Cheney?
devil more than the Republican Party.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, you want to be the one that fucks with Liz Cheney and has to deal with Dick? Dick's 100 years old, but he's got connections everywhere. He
Yeah.
he shot his buddy while he was hunting. This guy's fucking nuts. But
She's
Liz,
pretty she's
she's
pretty
tough.
brutal herself.
She is.
When I was reading like when during the whole January 6th thing, I'm like, who is this woman? Like I knew her voting record, and I'm like, outside of that, like who is she? And she has a sister who is LGBTQ,
Right.
and it's just like her policies, and it's like the way she did her sister, like outing her sister and all this other type of stuff. Just she would step on her own family to
Oh
get
yeah.
ahead.
Hell
You know
yeah.
what I mean? She's not scared of Donald Trump. So, and it's like she's that type of woman who can puff her chest out and be like, you know who my daddy is? You know who my family is? You don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like she's that type of person.
And
So even
she's
though I don't like her policies, just like as a woman, you can look at her and be like, yeah, that's the boss right there. So
yeah.
she carries herself with that respect. So I think
When
she'll be a good spoiler for Trump.
when she left the house, unlike Madison Cawthorn or George Santos whimpering away, what she did was the
Mhm.
equivalent of knocking over the lamp and tipping over the table and saying "fuck yourself" and leaving. And then she's not done
Yeah,
yet because she's still going to be working on these motherfuckers. Because the stuff in that book is exposing some people, and you don't hear anybody talking shit about Liz
no.
because
And I don't think
she's
you ever will
formidable.
either.
No, I don't
I
think
don't
so
think you
either.
ever will. Well, I don't think that I can't think of any like leader in the Republican Party who can, on an intellectual level, like go
Yeah.
there with her.
No.
even with her book, I believe it's self-written. So I'm like, I'm really anxious to like get in there and, you know, but I don't agree with her policy wise, but it's just like there is a level of respect there. There is a level that of a way that she carries herself.
Right.
Um, yeah, which is pretty sad because it's kind of like when you see someone like that and you think, if she was only on the side of good, just
Right.
imagine what she can contribute to this world.
I
She
mean,
can contribute so much if she wasn't rotten on the inside.
right,
That's the
right.
thing.
Well, and if you were to have a Republican president,
Mhm,
Liz Cheney, like you say, the policies don't line up with anything. But at least if you
mhm.
had Liz Cheney in as opposed to Donald Trump, you'd know she'd have a little bit of integrity. We know she does that. We know knows how to do the job and how government works. I mean, that was the
Yeah,
biggest problem with Donald Trump. He was crooked. He was corrupt, and he had no fucking clue what he was doing. That's why he accomplished nothing. I mean, it was like taking uh, my 3-year-old granddaughter and saying, "We got some electrical problems, honey. Could you straighten out the wiring in this place?" It's he had no clue what he was doing. He's got to be the dumbest man ever to hold that office. And there's been some dumb ones. George W. I thought George W. was the dumbest man ever in the presidency. When Donald Trump was president, I said, I miss George W. Somebody that smart. There's a lot of
yeah,
dumb
but
people in the Republican Party.
Trump had no interest in knowledge. He
No,
wasn't serious about how does this government work? You know what I mean? He didn't want to learn anything. Like he didn't have like an advisor there that he leaned on, that he wanted to learn from, or he didn't go to heads of states and just ask opinions and ask questions and try to figure things out. He didn't want to learn. He wasn't curious about anything. It was just, I know everything. Everybody else is wrong. Shut up. I got this. When nobody is an expert in everything. So you just take the best of each group of people and you try to like soak that knowledge up. You try to learn from that person. You try to grow from those people. There was absolutely no growth in him. Like most presidents, when they leave, they look older. Even Obama, he went from black hair to gray hair.
right.
And they feel the weight of that on them. He didn't do any of that. He was just
No.
like a bumbling idiot for 4 years. And he's responsible for like hundreds of thousands of people dying. And he didn't feel the weight of that like at all. It's kind of like an enigma. I've never known anybody who just doesn't want to learn, who doesn't want to know, who just it's like a freak of nature. Like you're not curious about science. You're not
No.
curious about how we could make the planet better for your grandkids that have to live here. Like you don't want to know how you can help people. You don't want to learn anything.
Well,
It was so weird.
Donald Trump went to Washington. Everybody goes to Washington, and you're supposed to be a public servant there, serve the country and
Yeah,
serve the people in this country. And most of them don't really do their jobs, don't do public service, but they're smart enough to make it look like they're doing public service. Donald
yeah,
Trump was described recently, and I can't remember who did this, but they said, he is a narcissist, but because he has no empathy, he has no conscience, he's more of a psychopath or a sociopath. And
absolutely.
I think that fits him perfectly because when he went in there, his only goal was get people to perceive him as a hero and doing all these great things, but he never did anything. And the only thing he's really, really focused in deep in his heart is his own self enrichment. That's all he really cares about.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says. He's never shown any interest in helping anybody but himself. Never. From the
Nope.
moment he walked into office to today, he's never done anything. He expects people to fall on the sword for him because he's Donald Trump and not testify against him. He's just he's just incredibly mentally ill.
Yeah, whether you're whether you are a public servant or you want to be perceived that way,
Yeah,
everybody has an agenda, you know, good, bad, or indifferent. Everybody has an agenda. You know, you could look at, I don't know why I was thinking about Tony Michaels, Micro Mike Johnson, but anyway, Micro Johnson,
yeah,
he has an agenda, and his agenda is a horrible agenda. You know, he wants to force his idea of Christianity down everybody else's throat. So it's a
right.
horrible agenda, but it's an agenda. You know, you can look at Biden and say he has an agenda of building the middle class out. That's his agenda. Everybody has an agenda. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she has an agenda. She wants to impeach Biden, and then that could be her claim to fame, and she could be more popular on TikTok. That's her agenda. Trump literally had no, like, what was your agenda? What did you want to do?
Well,
And you
nothing's
can't think of one single, like, literally nothing. He didn't want to say, I want to bring prayer back to school. Even when he was in the White House, he didn't say, I want to end Roe v. Wade. He didn't. That was like Mitch McConnell and everybody behind the scenes putting all these judges in because that was their agenda. They were just using Trump to help them enact their agenda. He had no agenda. He had no plan, no, like, nothing. He was just there.
well, and that's the thing
I'm
I've
scratching
always
my
said.
head because no, like, he was literally just there.
But
I'm scratching my head because it's baffling my mind a little bit.
well, the thing about it is you have to understand his mentality. It's not 3D chess. It's not smart. It's not anything. Donald Trump
Yeah.
is really easy because he's similar to the way my dad was. You know, all you have to do is flatter them, pat them on the back, tell them they're a genius. And I really believe when he came into office and they realized that he was coming into office, they didn't want him. But once they got him, they realized something. He's easily
Yeah.
manipulated. All the bad shit he did initially, the strings were being pulled by the bad people around him, the Mitch McConnells and all that stuff. I can manipulate this
Hmm.
fuck. Vladimir Putin knew how to manipulate this fuck.
Yep.
Kim Jong Un knew how to manipulate him. And he's easily manipulated. And so he was a willful idiot as the president. I don't think he started out as evil, but when he got caught up
Yeah.
in it and got in trouble, he has no other way to go is the way he's going now. And he's really, yeah, he likes to play the victim, but when
Yeah.
it's all said and done and he goes to jail, in a sense, he's a victim of all those fucking wolves in Washington that pretty much manipulated and used him. All those fuckers should be going to jail too because it was their idea. He's the one that enacted it, and he's the one that's going to go down for being the willful idiot.
Yeah. You said they manipulated and used him, and then you left off one. They enabled him also.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, because
Yeah.
Donald Trump couldn't have done any of this stuff on his own. And when you talk about like his ego, it reminded me. I read Omarosa's book, and I'm not a fan of hers, but I wanted
Talking about
I
egos.
wanted to see. Yeah. But I wanted to like kind of see what she said about Trump and the presidency. And I didn't notice it until I read it in the book, but she was saying, you know, he first got into the White House and he kind of was like, okay, now what? You know, he didn't have like a transition team put together. Like Obama went above and beyond to
Right.
like set him up and just said, follow this plan and you will be okay. Even with the pandemic response team, like you need to keep these people in place because there's stuff out here that we don't know about. And they will be in other countries and they will get a heads up on stuff and they'll let you know. So he had everything he needed, but he was so hell bent on tearing down Obama's legacy. But
Right.
not only that, she said once he was there, he started to kind of like mope around and feel really sad and down. And people was like frantic trying to figure out what was going on with Trump. And in her book, she said, like, if you look at it, the first 2 years of his presidency, he was back on the road doing rallies and talking about all the things that he was going to do now that he was in the White House, even
Right.
though he was in the White House. So instead of doing those things, he was holding rallies and stuff, and people were just like cheering and clapping and he's telling them what he's going to do, but he's not doing it. And she said that the only thing that like boosted him up and made him feel better was if he went to a rally or if he gave an interview or if he was standing at the podium and reporters were asking him questions. And that's the only time that they could lift his spirits up. So anytime he started feeling down, they would like have an event or make sure he was getting interviewed. And then to
Right.
even reference, like if you, and I saw it when you pay attention, sometimes you would catch him on the White House lawn, just like walking around. And then he would just walk over to where the reporters were and kind of like talk to them because he didn't know what else to do. Like
Right.
he didn't like being president. Like he just wanted people to praise him all the time.
Well, and that's it. It's all about perception with him. He wants to appear the smartest, the strongest, the best, the most popular. That's why
Yeah.
ratings were a big deal to him, or crowd
Hmm.
size was a big deal to him. And that's really all that mattered. Everything that may or may not have been done by the Trump administration, he didn't have anything to do with. He was just
Hmm.
there to take the credit for whatever work or misdeeds that everybody else did. You know,
Yeah.
like overturning Roe v. Wade. What the fuck did he do with that? He didn't actually do anything. He was the boss. He was where the buck stopped. Uh, but I but he wants credit for it now. He's so stupid that he doesn't understand that 75% of the country supports Roe v. Wade. He's so stupid that he wants to take credit for it. And when he did that video or that interview on video where he says, I'm the only one who did it in 50 years. I did it. I did it. You knew the Republicans going, no, don't say that, because Republicans, they want to overturn Roe v. Wade. And now that they found out it's bad for them, they're going, let's just not talk about it. And maybe people will forget. No, bitch, they ain't gonna forget. I tell people I've been married 40 years. My wife has forgotten nothing I've ever done in those 40 years. She can go into her mental catalog and go back to 86 and pick out 3 things that I did were stupid. And she will if she needs to. So when you take a constitutional right away from half the country, women, and piss off 75% of the country, they aren't going to forget in 2024. In my personal opinion, that one issue is the one that sinks it for the Republican Party. Fucking done.
Yeah. Donald Trump can't help himself. He is such like a narcissistic like psychopath.
He
He
is.
wants he wants credit for everything, but he doesn't want responsibility for anything.
Right.
So I want credit for Roe v. Wade, but I don't want the responsibility that it turns out more progressive voters. It turns out women against Republicans. He doesn't want the weight of that responsibility, but he wants the credit for making it happen. So I can just imagine the dust in his head going back and forth, like where like it's going from moment to moment. Then he has this weird talking point where he says overturning Roe v. Wade has given the Republicans a bargaining chip. And every time he says that, I'm just waiting for somebody to ask him, explain that. Like, what exactly does that mean? And he said it a few times now, like, well, now we overturn Roe v. Wade. That's giving Republicans a chance to bargain. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Like, he doesn't explain it, and no one asks him to explain it.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like no one really asks him anything when you think about it. When he's like, I'm gonna take care of the border. No one asks him like, oh, okay, so what's your plan? How are you gonna do that?
We'll tell you in two
Nobody,
weeks.
they just let him say it and then continue to talk.
Right.
He's talking and he's not saying anything. It's so weird. It's really fascinating to watch people allow him to do that.
The idea that Roe v. Wade is a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
That does make no sense. I know what he's thinking though, because I know how people like that think. He's thinking it's a bargaining chip. Oh, so you want to send money to Ukraine. So you bargain with them with Roe v. Wade. I'm going to tell you right now, they've stepped in it with Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
They are not going to willfully give that back. It's going to have to be taken from them. They're not going to use it as a bargaining chip. In fact, if anything, it hurt them because they spent decades fundraising and campaigning on overturning Roe v. Wade. And now they don't have that. That's not in their pocket. Roe v. Wade now works against them as opposed to working for them. And they're fucked thanks to these people jumping the gun before the midterms. They fucked themselves and they found out during the midterms.
Yeah, and I don't think that, well, I don't, it's not that I don't think, I know they didn't think it all the way through because there
No,
would have been some kind of, okay, so was like you would think to yourself, this is going to be a fallout. So how do we deal with the fallout? How do we deal with the questions? How do we deal with the special circumstances? And nobody asked themselves that question
no,
because there was a time, I mean, even now, like being pregnant and giving birth, it's a serious issue, but thanks to modern technology and medication and ultrasounds and everything, women are more safe to have babies now. You can
right,
detect abnormalities earlier. You can make this informed decisions with your doctors and your family, right?
right,
But there was a time when we didn't have that. And women were like dying like crazy right before, during, and after childbirth. But because of that, our mortality rate in childbirth, it went down because
right,
of modern technology.
right,
But now they want to say, okay, so now we know we know how to prevent all these women from dying from childbirth, but we don't want to prevent that anymore.
yeah,
We
yeah,
want to
exactly,
just let them have their ectopic ectopic pregnancies, which basically you cannot carry an ectopic pregnancy. You can't. If you
right,
go for a certain amount of time, you're gonna die. Your baby cannot grow there. So they're gonna die, you're gonna die. So
yep.
instead of just stopping that situation before it gets that far, it's just like, no, we need for you to be knocking on death's door before we take care of this. But then that puts you in a position to where you can't have children in the future. You know what I mean? So it's like if you want women to have babies, but you're allowing for their bodies to be scarred and traumatized in such a way that where they can't, that defeats your purpose. But
But
it's
but
like if you can prevent women from dying, why would you not want to do that? And they're saying, no, we want to go back to, before we had this technology and women were dying.
right,
That's the time period that we want to go back to. Like as a woman, do you know how disrespectful that is? Do you know how ignorant that sounds? And then when I hear women in the Republican Party saying that, you just want to smack them because it's kind of like these men are standing there with a gun to your head and you're giving them the bullets.
right. Well,
You know what I mean? Like I can't rationalize the women in the Republican Party like at
no,
all. I can't do it.
no,
Can't
it
do it.
makes no sense, and it's not all the women in the Republican Party. Many of them are pro Roe v. Wade, even though they are in the Republican Party. But it kind of goes to what I've said before. Certainly Donald Trump, but the Republican Party in general, they can't think
Mhm.
beyond the end of their nose. They're like a
Yeah.
puppy or a toddler. I want what I want now. I don't think about the past. I don't think about the future. I just want to get what I want now. And then they get what they want now and they realize, oh, that was a fucking dumb choice. They're too arrogant to realize they could be wrong. They get what they want because that's all they're going after. And then after the fact, they go, oh, that's fucked up. So now I got to figure out another angle to get out of that. Now, with the Roe v. Wade, there is no angle to get out of that. It's pretty cut and dried. You're either for it or you're against it. And if you're against legal abortion, you're not very popular in this country. You're not going to win an election. I mean, we're seeing it in Ohio and all these places. They're red states, but they can't pass an abortion law in their states because Republicans don't want
Yeah.
to outlaw abortion either.
Yeah, they put themselves in a position to where they can't think ahead. You know what I mean? Because you have to keep the way that they've trained their base to be such a reaction to everything, so sensitive to everything, and you have to keep them angry all the time. You have to kind of like do whatever it is that's going to keep them upset. So instead of like stepping back, calming down, figuring it out, taking a rational approach, they can't do that, because when you do that, it gives people a chance to like really like calm down and really just think about things, but you don't want them thinking. So you have to go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to keep them riled up and upset. And then depending on what their reaction is going to determine the next thing that you do. So you can't plan ahead when you have to see what the next person's reaction is going to be. So they put themselves in that position.
Right.
So they're not able to think ahead, even with Hunter Biden. You know what I mean? We will let him testify in front of Congress behind closed doors, whatever it is, any day, anytime he needs to come testify. Hunter Biden says, no problem. I'll come testify in public. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't even think about the consequence because they had to tell the base, we're telling him to come testify, and we don't care how he comes and testifies. The fact that he's not testifying, it should tell you guys that he's hiding something and they're lying. Does they
It's
have to say that to make the base mad? So when
right.
Hunter Biden says, okay, yeah, I'll come, now you have to figure your way out of this hole that you done dug for yourself. But it's like they're digging themselves out of a hole, but at the same time, they're pouring water on the dirt. So it's
Right.
like they're trying to climb out of mud and they keep slipping and falling everywhere. It's kind of comical to watch,
Well, it
but
is.
it has real life consequences. But the whole Hunter Biden thing, it tickles me.
Well, watching, and I'm going to use a term that's probably inappropriate and another reference that's way out of your age range, but everything they do, they seem to step on their dick and look like the Three Stooges. You know, it's like Mo hitting Curly on the head and
Larry,
poking,
Curly, and Mo.
yeah,
I know about the three sisters.
and poking Larry in the eyes with the two, you know. But
Yeah,
every time if it wasn't so disastrous for this country, it would be
yeah,
a great show. Did you?
yeah. It's funny, but it has like some serious consequences to
Yeah.
it. And then I'm thinking like now they're not thinking this all the way through, because you know how they like to say this is a witch hunt. They're coming after us. They're doing this, they're doing that. Okay, so what makes you think Democrats are not going to start feeling that about Joe Biden?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
it's like you're trying and you're trying and you're trying and you're trying to pin something on this man, and he ain't do anything. So it's
Right.
kind of like rallying people like, okay, enough is enough. Y'all need to stop. You know what I mean? And
Right.
then it's so obvious that they're weaponizing their positions. It's like making people like angry at them. It's having the opposite effect. So that's the comical part about the whole Hunter Biden situation. And they don't want to do it,
Now,
but they have to, because they told that to the base that they have to do it. So now that the base is demanding it, they don't have a choice. They have to do it. So it's kind of like
they're not exactly
good
slick.
luck with that.
They're just clumsy and awkward, and they fuck up all the time. We're gonna wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast, but I want to get your your reaction to this. George Santos
Yeah.
is gone now. He wrote some shitty ass book. Somebody bought the rights to the book and they're going to do a movie on it. I bet you can't wait for that movie, huh? Not going to go.
I don't know what to say about George Santos. He is such like a bitter, sassy little queen, like
He is. He
I
is.
feel like that, like he's so entertaining where it's hard to like not like him. He's kind of like that likable villain. Like you don't want him to win, but you kind of like I think he grew on us. I really do think he did. However, I think George Santos is 5 minutes of fame,
Yeah.
so I think that he's
Not
having his moment right now. I don't blame him for capitalizing on it and doing his cameos, and I don't mind him exposing, Republicans and stuff. But, his 5 minutes of fame will be up and we'll be on to the next. That's
so.
it.
If I could justify spending $200, but I can't. If I could justify that, I would have George Santos do a cameo for you.
What would you have him say? Because you got to tell him what to say.
I know. I don't know. I don't know. Well, you heard what Fetterman did, right? Did you hear about
What did
that?
he do?
John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, the guy that
Hmm.
wears the sweatshirts and stuff. As
Oh, his
soon,
outfit is so offensive to Republicans now.
yeah,
You can show nudes, but don't wear no jeans. But go
yeah,
ahead.
okay. He's wearing a sweatshirt. By the way, here's Hunter's dick. Yeah, it's just
Exactly.
um, but no, he as soon as George got on Cameo, Fetterman hired him to talk
Oh
shit
no.
to talk shit about Bob Menendez, the Democratic senator that's going through the corruption shit. That's hilarious.
You know what? I don't think anyone trolls like Fetterman.
Yeah.
He's so good at it, you know. Even when he's like, "Ooh, not the scary Republicans," it's like it's hilarious because as you have to find the humor somewhere just for sanity. You know what I mean? And I think I didn't even get to ask you what you think about this Kevin McCarthy bowing out and then being down to a one-seat majority.
Well, it was basically Kevin McCarthy saying, fuck you, Republicans. Thanks for kicking me out of my job. Now I'm going to put you in the shit. That's exactly what he did.
The biggest fundraiser, do you think that he's going to be using any of that fundraising money
Yeah,
to get,
probably.
I mean, like just to get them out? Like I kind of was thinking that he's going to use his war chest to kind of like target the crazy eight.
Oh, I'm
But
sure.
then, yeah, I was like, when he starts doing that, I'll have his respect at that point because he just kind of
He's kind of
he
a pussy ass bitch, too.
yeah, and he wouldn't take responsibility. He blamed everything on the crazy eights, and then some warped part of his mind said the Democrats was with the crazy eights, but he didn't take any responsibility that he gave all of these concessions in the first place.
He cut the
And
deal.
but he didn't realize that he was a bully that nobody was afraid of.
Right, right,
When Donald Trump threatens people, you see stuff happen. When Kevin McCarthy threatened people, they pretty much laughed in his face and was like, "Yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and kick you out now." Like when you're in that type of position, you need respect and a little bit of fear in there.
right.
And he didn't have any of that. And he don't take responsibility for it. But I
Well,
do look forward to him getting even with them, with his
well,
getting them out.
here's an old school reference too. Kevin McCarthy was kind of the Barney Fife of speakers of the House. I'm a real tough guy and nobody fucking scared of you.
Andy Griffith, Barney Fife.
Kevin, you get one fucking bullet. That's all you get. You're
I
on a
can see
short
that.
goddamn leash.
I can see that. I can see that. That was like one of my favorite duos there, Andy Griffith. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even on Matlock, I like them together. But anyway, that's a little too old. So
Well, that's not that old for me. That's like yesterday for me. Um, all right. Old soul, I'm glad everything worked out with your daughter in that very scary time at UNLV. And I'm thankful you came on the show and talked. And I'm really excited about the fact, even though we're recording this on Thursday, by the time people see it, I will have actually met you in person. So I'm excited about
yeah,
that too.
yeah. Thanks for letting me come on and vent and laugh and talk because I've been sick and
Yeah, me
you
too.
know, yeah, it's
It,
just been me and all that stuff. So it was nice talking to somebody else.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, we we thank Old Soul for coming on, and she'll be on again soon. I actually look for TikTok. I'm going to try to get her on TikTok. Well, by the time you've heard this, you would have already seen that, so I won't even go into that. But we'll have Old Soul back as soon and as often as we can, as often as she's able and willing. Uh, thanks to
And I'm
Old.
always in the comment section on the days that you post just to,
I know you
say
are.
hi to people and let them know I appreciate them because I do. I really
Yeah,
do.
yeah. We need to start we need to get Old Soul on a cameo, and then I'm going to hire you to say fuck George Santos.
Give me $200, I'll say it.
Sounds good. All right. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.